Hello, I'm Jake Woodrow, civic journalist at Tello Community Television. This week, on The Record, Richmond Municipal Council held its Committee of the Whole session on December 2nd in Arishat. After the meeting, I spoke with Deputy Warden Amanda Mumbriket and District 5 Councillor Brent Sampson. Josie Robinson, the Community Engagement and Public Relations Manager with the Dr. Kingston Memorial Community Health Center, gave a presentation on media literacy and its compounding effects on public health and safety.
We're going to hand things over for a presentation from Josie Robinson.
So I'm here to present today on the impacts of our Control F Find the Facts Media Literacy Workshop that we hosted in October and November. And a bit about the organizations that came together to make this happen. So Civics is a nonpartisan Canadian charity that aims to strengthen democracy by improving civic engagement in K-12 schools. Control F is a program they developed to help folks develop skills to evaluate online information and build trust. That actually started in schools and has now begun to transition into community. I knew about Civics because of some of the work I've done in schools in the past. When we set out to create programming like this, I searched far and wide to see if someone could do something similar for adults, and I really couldn't find anyone. So I reached out to Civics and said, hey, there's a lot of grown-ups who would like to learn these skills and just maybe never had the opportunity. Could we collaborate? Could we modify this somehow to make it deliverable in community? And they were actually working on something like this, and we were kind of, at the Kingston, one of the first organizations to raise our hand. So yeah, and we got moving, and they gave us a lot of creative control. Part of the reason why we wanted to develop this programming is we were noticing kind of a gap in public discourse and thus in available public programming. There's an acknowledgement of digital literacy, which is the ability to access, find, and create information online. So can you make an email account? Can you use job search sites? Can you use search engines like Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing, online banking, things like that? But there's a bit of a transition to how you can understand information that you're seeing, which we're all bombarded by it. We all get an excess of information, but how can you navigate it, analyze it, understand how information is being manipulated before it gets to you, develop ways to fact check and assess credibility, and understand how algorithms are shaping what you see. We kind of thought, we get people online, but then what? Yeah, algorithms have quietly and profoundly changed how we think and behave, and it's not always something we actively think about. It's to the point now where adoption is already here. It's not always a problem for most people getting online. It's understanding how that works in your life. So there's some good data on this. A global report by Reuters reported that 45% of Canadians now turn to social media as their first source of news. And in Canada, we kind of have a unique problem where we don't have a lot of media outlets. We tend to have a lot of big players, but not a lot of number of players. And that's created an unintended consequence where influencers now have more reach than traditional media does online. We're particularly concerned for our seniors as well. Stereotypes are kind of eroding. Seniors are now online just as much as anyone else. Statistics Canada in 2022 reported that 82% of seniors are using the internet daily. On that note, we wanted to get people thinking about how information spreads in a way that is different than what it was in the past. So in the past, human beings were gatekeepers of information. A news anchor, a newspaper editor, even folks like librarians, politicians, were the folks that controlled how information was disseminated to the public. And these people had to gain expertise, and that took a lot of time and a lot of work, and it slowed how information reached the masses. Now, algorithms are what curate information, and algorithms have data on your behavior. Algorithms want to keep you on platform for as long as they can, thus they want to gain the strongest emotional reaction from you. And algorithms don't necessarily care about nuance or context. So we can't always rely on popularity as being an indicator of truth or reliability. Yeah, and that's why I say we can no longer verify information from social cues like we used to. If you see a message coming from a public figure, that image can be manipulated. If you see a friend or a relative or someone you trust sharing something, that person can have good intentions and still make mistakes, right? So just because it's coming from your social circle doesn't mean it's locally relevant or truthful. And the algorithms have also created a world where we're all living in our own information bubbles. It means that every time each one of us opens the internet, we're all seeing a different, individually tailored reality. This phrase I really like, if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product. We're very used to having free access to internet platforms, but that means those platforms are monetizing information about us. And another thing that's changed about the internet, I'd say especially in the last 10 years, is that the internet went from being very fragmented to being very centralized. There are 5 big tech companies that now control most of the internet and thus most of our lives. So that's companies like Amazon, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook. Yeah, and so that can kind of create echo chambers and make it hard for people to branch out. For some people who are late adopters of the internet, one thing I'm seeing is that for a lot of people, Facebook is the internet to them, right? It's encompassed their entire visual and tactile experience of the internet, so they may need help to learn how to use other tools, but that can be done. I want to talk a bit about the Facebook news ban. That's another unique Canadian barrier. As I'm sure you're aware, council persons, that's kind of a power struggle between our government and the corporate entity that is Meta. What I was finding interesting in community is that when you talk to people and you ask them why they're still using Facebook, because everybody kind of doesn't like it, we all have our complaints about it, but people would say, well, I want to know what's going on in my community. That's really interesting when there's an active news ban, right? So the Media Ecosystem Observatory, which is a team of academics from McGill University, Simon Fraser University, and a few others, found 1 year out from the news ban on Facebook, 78% of Facebook users were not aware that it had taken place. So that's a symptom of the information bubble right before our eyes, because Facebook's not going to tell on itself, right? They're not going to tell you when they're in the midst of a very public dispute. Reuters, in the 2023 report that they did, also found that Facebook use is the same, but news intake has dropped. Canadian independent news outlets lost 11 million daily views after that news ban. And local news is the most vulnerable. Many independent news outlets didn't have their own websites, didn't have their own ways of reaching news readers outside of that. And I'd like to point to a very urgent phenomenon we're starting to see happen as a result of this platform tunnel vision. This image I'm showing you right here, right off the top, this is fake. This is an AI-generated image, but this was something that the Northwest Territories Fire and Rescue Service had to put out public awarenesses about. What we're seeing is that algorithms have created a world where being popular gets you visibility, and visibility is what gets you money, right? So AI slop farms who could be a world away will capitalize on this. So images like this can get millions of views without having any local ties. And we've seen similar things happen in Manitoba. There was fake links circulating for Red Cross aid that didn't exist. So this is increasingly putting a drain on the resources of first responders on the ground. And the only way we can combat this is to be proactive in our communities and make people aware. And that's what we hope to do at the Kingston. So this is what I've been telling my students, that wherever there's a harsh reality, there's a powerful optimism. The internet is increasingly inseparable from our lives. To do anything, to apply for a job, to help your kids or your grandkids with their homework, to look at the weather, you increasingly have to know how to use the internet. But what I will say is diversify your intake of the internet. And in our Control F Find the Facts programming, we were teaching folks simple and free ways that they can gradually do that. Even if it's just taking in one extra website a month to train yourself how to use other sources of the internet, you can become a more resilient digital citizen. And I also think it's very powerful that we have more access to information than anyone who has ever lived before us. We can still use that for a good thing. Yeah, some observations from community. There's a lot of conflicting opinions about YouTube. I found that people hold it in similar regard to television, which is concerning because YouTube does not have the strict rules about advertising that television does. The person who made the video you're watching can't control what ad comes before it. Ads on YouTube can be very long, and you can mistake that for genuine content. And some of the worst deepfakes I've seen lately are YouTube ads. We found people saying, well, but I watch CTV, I watch CNN on YouTube. That doesn't mean that it's the same as TV. Also, even if you're Chromecasting to your TV, it doesn't mean that it's safer. Another thing we noticed as well, especially when using search engines that are now automatically putting in AI results, some people don't know the difference. Some people take that as a legitimate source, but even when using AI tools, you still have to check the sources that it's citing to you, and some people weren't aware of how to take that next step to fact check what an AI is giving you. I'm especially concerned for our seniors again in that regard because it's being marketed to our seniors as kind of a shortcut, but I don't think that it is. You still have to have the cognitive skills to verify what it's giving you, and I think that we need to help our seniors get there. Our seniors cannot be left out of a digital future. The way forward, above all else, we have to normalize talking about this because I feel like it's something that's affected us in isolation. Everyone thinks it's a problem, but no one wants to admit how it's a problem for them. And increasingly, it's a problem for all of us. No matter your age, it's affecting, I was saying to my students, like, it doesn't matter if you're 17 or 70, this will affect your life at some point. There's no shame in that, but we just have to learn as we go. And find ways to consume Canadian media. We use it or we lose it. Increasingly, I find that folks are really overwhelmed by US news, but may not have any idea what's happening at a local, provincial, or national level in their own lives. I have friends that could tell me the name of every US senator, but would they know their own MP, right? That's something we have to change in Canadian culture. And organizations need to find ways to communicate with their clients outside of Facebook. So I'd really like to commend everyone here at the municipality for the Voyant Alert app. That is a step in the right direction. I'd like to see more municipalities doing that for sure. And I'd even extend that to like school districts, church parishes, volunteer groups, like find ways, even if it's just a newsletter, to have ways to reach people. Because if one day Facebook doesn't exist, you don't want to have to start from scratch. Yeah, and I'd like to put a note to amplify the work of the watchdogs and those spreading awareness. So I mentioned the Media Ecosystem Observatory. There's also a nonprofit called Open Media, who has done a lot of advocacy work to develop AI policy at a federal level. Yeah, and normalize awareness and literacy in workplaces and schools and develop responsible policies, use cases, and I'd also put a note that we need to develop funding models as well. So my last point is to support and participate in community initiatives like ours. In the past few months, we had sessions in Lordways and Petit de Gras, but in the springtime, we are looking to expand into more venues around the county to reach as many people as we can where they are.
Thank you so much, Josie. I feel like I know a whole lot of folks who need to have this very presentation and I need to participate in those workshops. I've been fooled by AI generated content. Even if you're really savvy and you're on top of it, it can slip by you really quickly. So thank you. I really appreciate this. Does anybody have any questions for Josie?
When you say making people aware of fake content, how do you go about doing that? Because as our deputy warden says, and she's on a lot of these different media, she's been caught by it. So how do you expect the seniors? I mean, even myself, like, sometimes you don't know what to believe, that you just, like, you say we don't like Facebook because it's ads, and you don't know what to believe on these health things, and because there's so many of them. Like, one day chocolate is good, the next day it's not good. carrots are good, the next day it's not. So what do you believe? You know?
Chocolate's always good.
You know, but I mean,
a very instantaneous stream of information, but I think the pendulum's starting to swing the other way, where we do have to get used to building the habit of taking in multiple sources of information. So if you have something on your feed saying like chocolate is terrible, one of the skills we teach in our workshop is called lateral reading, which is contrary to what most people do on apps, which is called vertical reading. So if you see something bad on Facebook or TikTok and you continue to scroll and scroll and scroll, the chances of you seeing bad information is going to go up. But if you get off of Facebook, open new tabs, open sites like a Google search and do a keyword search, or open sites like Wikipedia or the Canadian Encyclopedia, or even mainstream news sites, get multiple opinions to then help you develop your own. Because we're kind of used to being told, like, this is the thing you need to agree with, this is the thing you need to think, and we need to kind of break that habit, which is not the answer anyone needs to hear. It would be so much easier if there was like a surefire way to always know, but we're not always going to know. The technology is already, with AI, miles ahead of where it was even 6 months ago. I started making my lesson plans for Find the Facts in June, and by October I already had to change them, right? It's accelerating that fast.
like anyone that's looking into health-related issues, a lot of these, I don't know if you want to call them podcasters or people doing the talks, are doctors. We assume we can trust them. One says one thing and another says another thing. Like, how do the seniors or anyone decipher what's good or not good out of any of that?
That's a good question. Thank you for that question. Yeah.
And the other thing is, what I do find is they always say, click the link below. Don't do that, but when you read the articles or the comments that people make, they say it's scam or it's whatever. So, I mean, I don't know what to believe.
Firstly, one of the concepts we talk about in Find the Facts is domain knowledge. So you're absolutely right that a lot of these podcasts pump up their perceived expertise by having doctors or professionals on their podcasts. But someone can be a professional in one area and not be a professional in another. A very recent viral example, did anyone see this in the news, the controversy with Campbell's Soup Company? How it was being posed in the media as the vice president of Campbell's Soup has said very disparaging things about people who eat their food who are living in poverty. Well, when you looked more into that story, he was the VP of cybersecurity. He's not a dietitian. He's not a nutritionist. So we would say he does not have domain knowledge. So if you're listening to podcasts with folks who are doctors, who are claiming a certain level of expertise, their expertise should be narrowed to be relevant to that topic. So someone can be a doctor who knows about the digestive system. That doesn't mean they know about the brain, right? Those are two different domain knowledges. Another thing with the click this link here, something I was preaching to the students is hover, don't click. So if you get a link on your email or something, you can hover over the link and it will show you a link preview without you having to click it. And so if something's claiming to be, I don't know, CBC News, but you hover over that link and it says fastmoneynow.ca, probably don't click that link. That's a skill that we teach. Oh my, there was one other part to your question that I might have more on, but could you repeat the last part of your question?
Yeah, when they say to click the link down below, and then I look at the comments before clicking the link, people are saying it's a scam. And some of these things you read are so lengthy. They could just get to the point of 3 ways to cure cancer or whatever. You know, they talk about the foods that you eat, and you're reading and reading and reading and reading, and then it's click the link below, and I read the comments before, and they say it's a scam, it's this, it's fake, or get to the, you know, the 3 things, because the heading of an article will say things you can do to, you know, for health or for fighting this or fighting that ailment. And it's just lengthy, and then it's a link. So you're not getting any information of the 3 good foods to eat or whatever the article was. So I just get fed up with it after a while.
The headline that you're seeing that says these 3 things, that's clickbait to get you to click. And the lengthy description that doesn't tell you the 3 things, that's what we would call like an engagement trap. It's keeping you on that page longer because that's how they can monetize, they can prove more engagement by keeping you on that page longer. But I thought I'd also comment, or I'd also remark on the comments that are saying this is fake, this is fake. That's something we also talk about in Find the Facts, digital de-escalation, because there's ways that we communicate online that can unintentionally amplify, but people don't realize because they're not bridging that gap of social behavior in real life doesn't translate online. In real life, if someone before you was saying something wildly fake, it would be acceptable to be like, no, that's fake, stop. But online, it can unintentionally amplify because, again, algorithms don't care about nuance, about context. They just want you to push button more. So if you get in the comments and say, this is fake, that's up to the counter. Oh, now there's more comments. I'm going to push this in the feed. So by commenting, by liking, by sharing, you're actually unintentionally pushing the visibility of that. So this is where I tell folks, like, I teach folks how to flag content to the platform host to get it taken down. If something is like legitimately dangerous, like the AI image of the forest fire I showed you guys, I have seen like actual public authorities like accidentally amplify fake material. When you share something on social media, it will share the original text of whoever posted it, not yours. Your users will see the original text first. So if you share something saying, hey guys, this is fake, don't listen to what this page says, they might not see it. So what you should do instead is take a screenshot. If nothing else, if you take nothing else away from what I've said today, take a screenshot so that traffic doesn't go back to the original poster, right? And if you need to send it to someone you know, take a screenshot and direct message it to them. That's what's working at present. Again, that could change. It's always changing. But that's the advice I would give to people at present. Yeah. Anything you do, whether bad or good, is still engagement, and that's all the algorithm cares about, is what's going to get more engagement. So if you're fighting with a stranger in the comments, you're giving it more engagement. You're unintentionally pouring gasoline on that fire.
So thank you so much, Josie. I feel like this is something we could talk about for a very long time, and I'm seeing like everything you're saying. I'm seeing, in my mind the behavior of what's happening on platforms like Facebook. It's happening in real time right before our very eyes. So this is really critical work. Thank you so much for sharing it and for giving it that health and safety spin that I think we can forget about sometimes because we think, it's just Facebook. But yeah, I really appreciate it.
Okay, so after hearing about media literacy, that presentation by Josie Robertson, how important is it to present facts to the public in this time of misinformation?
Oh, I think it's critically important. And I think Josie made some great points, especially talking about doing lateral research when you're seeing information on how many times we see people share on Facebook or whatever social media, share this if you agree. Well, that's not news if you agree. You really need to find those source points. And so I think, that's why we're really encouraging people when you're looking for county-based information, come to the source before sharing things on social media that you're not sure about. We do use our Richmond County Facebook page. We've got this new great Voyant alert, and that is your direct line of communication from the county to know what's happening in your community. So really hugely encouraging people to sign up for that. And the information on how to do so is on our website.
Now, how prevalent have scams and frauds been on residents in the municipality? I know of some cases myself, and I'm sure you do as well, people who have been victimized or almost victimized by some of these very convincing phony scams. Absolutely.
I mean, I can tell you, Jake, I don't think there is going to be an accurate statistic on how prevalent it is, because I think a lot of people don't report it, especially if it's a near miss. I mean, I found myself in the early days of when the, texting scams began. I found myself in the parking lot of a store thinking, okay, I have to go purchase gift cards for, because I thought someone that I knew was contacting me, but their phone number was being, cloned somehow. Anyway, the point is this can happen to anybody. I consider myself a pretty savvy tech user. I've been, I made a joke tonight that I started learning how to use computers before there was such a thing as a mouse or Windows, right? So I've been in the game a long time, but so this really can happen to anybody. And I definitely encourage people to be extra vigilant, even if you do consider yourself familiar.
because you can get over comfortable, and that can lead, to some wrong choices and to your detriment. So I would also encourage people that if they do feel they've been victimized, to report it to the RCMP if it's appropriate to do so, report it to their banks if it's appropriate, whichever type of a scam that they've been subject to. They are not alone, I can promise you.
Under new business, council recommended looking into the implementation of a fire levy on all property owners in Point Tupper.
We will move on to new business. And the first item of new business is the potential implementation of a fire protection rate on property owners in Point Tupper. And we have a staff briefing note regarding this matter. So I would like to, I guess, first of all, maybe provide a little context. I think there's two understandings of what happened, or a couple of understandings from what happened in our budget talks. Some folks had understood there was direction to staff to proceed with the implementation of a protection rate Point Tupper. Others understood that the direction for staff was to come back with information. So I do want to point that out right off the top. We'll do a better job of, like you said, CAO, capturing that in motions, even if it is during something like budget deliberations in the future. But in the meantime, information has been provided, and I would, I guess, ask councillors if maybe go around the table and see if councillors have specific opinions on what is being proposed. It's a 5-cent rate that is being proposed at this stage of the game, and my understanding is that it's being proposed to apply to both residential and commercial properties. Is that? Yes. Okay.
On the tax roll in that geographic area.
Okay. Great. Okay. So, Councillor Marchand, I'll start with you.
The budget, my thought was that we were going to actually recover the cost. Everybody else in the municipality is paying the cost of fires, I guess, the fire departments in their respective area. So the only thing that I thought staff was coming back with was the number that was going to get us the amount we're paying to the town of Port Hawkesbury, because that's the cost for the area. I would like the residential rate at 10 cents like everyone else. Well, like most of them in that district, because I know some of them paying the West Bay are paying the 15 cents. So I would like the residential rate at 10 cents and the commercial rate at the number needed to recoup the remainder. I thought at budget that we were going to actually put the 5 cent on the final tax bill of 2020 of this fall, the final one that went out, and next April it was going to be up to the 10 cents. I realized there was some issues with timing, so the notice didn't go out in time, and that's why that didn't happen on the fall tax bill. But my recommendation would be to put the residential at 10 and the commercial at whatever is necessary to pick up the rest.
Councillor Sampson, did you want to make any comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, when it comes to the 5 cents that was discussed, I think it's all in our best interest, and I think it's all our opinion to recoup some of the money that the funding and the agreement that we have with the town of Port Hawkesbury. But I'm okay with doing this in incremental baby steps, and the 5 cents that staff is looking at here is fine with me at the present time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sampson.
I do remember us talking about 5. This is something I've advocated for 4 or 5 budget cycles now. But yeah, I do know what Councillor Marchand was talking about. I think, there was some talk of into the fall, but if the timing didn't work, that's fine. But I think we were fairly clear with staff. I thought that council was in favor of going forward. That being said, I think this is a proposal in front of us. On a personal level, I like the idea of 5 cents to start it, and then just move it to where we have a cost recovery model for what we're paying Port Hawkesbury now to cover that area. I think, I would strongly disagree with having a different rate residential to commercial, because nobody else in the county has that. So to me, that wouldn't make any sense to do it there where other places don't. Like any other area, their commercial and like their fire protection rate is the same whether it's commercial or residential. So yeah, I'd very much be in favor of this at 5 cents. And then, as Councillor Sampson said, we increase it incrementally just to a point of cost recovery.
So tonight you mentioned that you've been advocating for a fire levy in Point Upper for quite some time. Why have you had that position? And I assume you're happy to see that that's proceeding.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see it proceeding, and I want to commend staff for their work on this. So probably since, I'm not sure if it would have been the first budget year I was here or the second budget year, it's been a discussion that's come up every year at budget time. It was discovered sort of prior to 2020. I don't think all that far before maybe, but prior to my time on council, that as it turned out, everybody else in the county other than the Point Tupper area pays a fire rate when they get their property tax bill. We, early on in the 2020, after the 2020 election cycle, as a council, we settled on an agreement with the town of Port Hawkesbury and the fire department located in Port Hawkesbury to cover Point Tupper in the event of a fire, to be the first sort of responders there. And that was something had gone on for a few years. There have been some different iterations of how that would work and so on. And anyhow, we signed a long-term agreement, and that was good. That was a positive. But then the discussion led to the fact that, the general tax rate is covering this agreement, whereas everybody else in the county, if you had a house or a business located, let's say here in Ayrshire or in Lordways or St. Peter's, Lewisdale, anywhere, you pay a fire rate. Now that rate can vary. However, if you were a resident or a business in Point Tupper, you were still getting, great fire protection, but you weren't paying a fire rate. So, in my mind, it was just fair that everyone else in the county has to pay a rate for fire protection, that it would only be reasonable that, businesses and residents in Point Tupper would pay one as well. So, the starting it at 5 cents, that would be by far the lowest in the county. But I also didn't feel that we wanted to hit them all at once with it, because it will be a burden to some, and I think we want to be aware of that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Right, and I feel that without the kind of, I feel like the missing piece of information here is the potential revenue generation, right? Like I know in the past when we looked at, even when we were trying to come up with the agreement with, for fire protection jointly with Port Hawkesbury, we had a list of like the assessment values of the properties and what a potential levy would be able to be collected on that, and I feel like that's missing from this piece of information. So for myself, I personally won't be able to support that at this stage of the game. I'd rather see more information provided so that we have a sense. To your point, Councillor Marchand, if we start out with a 5 cent levy, how close does that get us to the gap between what we're paying out for fire protection, because I would also agree with Councillor Brent that we don't want to see two different rates. So for me, that's an important piece of missing information. So I'll leave it at that. But is there I'll leave it also to councillors if you are interested in making a motion to this effect. There is a recommendation in there from staff. So any further comments? I'll start with you, Councillor Marchand. I think you.
Yeah. The notice that's going out, the second paragraph where it has, was calling it the tax levy billing, I would change that to just property tax bill. Because.
I believe it's a levy anyway, right?
No. How they have it in the notice at the top, it is a fire levy, and that's fine. But just that it'll be on your April 1st, 2026 property tax bill is what I would put there. I thought that we were given some numbers that the 5 cent was around 40,000. Just looking through some budget stuff, but I would have maybe written it that it would have been around the 42,000 because
she gave you a number that day.
Yeah,
It wasn't defined. She hadn't pulled
it was a verbal number, and I don't have my stuff here. But if I was good at typing, I'd put it on my computer, but not good like you are. But I know that she said the 5 cent was not recouping the full $64,000, so that's why it would go up. And I was pretty sure at budget that we spoke it would be on the final tax bill for 2020, for the calendar year 2025, not the fiscal year. Yes. And then it would be changed the following year. But I'm okay with it being the 5 cents. I'm not against it. I'd go to the amount, if you want to have one consistent amount, the number that would recoup the full amount that Pert Hawkesbury wants, is what I would do. And I'm okay with making the the motion that's there with the recommendation on page 2. I'll move that we recommend that to council with the 5 for April 1, 2026, and the notice going out as soon as possible.
But the same rate for commercial land?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, you'll need to press your button again. I thought you were finished, Councillor.
Yeah, my thing is the commercial assessment in the park is quite high. So you could have their number a little different. And some of those commercial properties have some of their own firefighting people and equipment. So, but if you guys, I mean, the commercial that's elsewhere, we're talking stores and businesses, they don't have any firefighting other than maybe sprinklers or stuff like that. They're not equipped like Everwinds is and others. So that's why I thought a little different rate for us to understand that or show that we're understanding that. But I'm okay with a consistent rate right across for the various reasons that you guys have stated.
So could you provide some clarity on what your motion actually is then? It's the...
The recommendation that's there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's suggested in the motion is the whole thing that's there.
Okay. So
Yeah.
just for members of the public, the recommendation is that council approve providing formal written notice to all Point Tupper property owners advising that effective April 1, 2026, a fire protection rate of 5 cents per 100, because it's not a levy, it's a protection rate as per information from staff of 100, so it's 5 cents per $100 of assessment will be applied to their properties, and to direct staff to complete all required notification, administrative, and communication steps to implement the levy in accordance with the MGA. So that's what we're talking about. Okay, is there a seconder on that motion?
I'd be happy to second that motion. I'm more than excited to second that motion after several budget deliberations.
5 years.
Yeah.
That's the recommendation. The motion is actually the following page. She says, so, whereas.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what you said, Deputy Warden. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Right, but again, the full motion on that second page, that would be something we would need to do at a regular council meeting. Also, it's still using that wording fire levy, and I think that needs to be updated.
We'll edit that and the notice as well. We'll take the edits.
Okay.
Yeah, the notice, it's because it's an actual property tax bill
It
we're
is.
getting with a fire rate on the bill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Sampson, did you have a question? You look like you had.
Yeah, more or less to go back to what Councillor Marchand said about the two different levies, and then just speaking of the commercial rate being different, were you considering the 5 cents being lower, Councillor Marchand, than the 5 cents, or do you think the overall number could be lower than 5 cents?
No, well, if my memory serves me correct, that the 5 cent across the board didn't pull in the proper amount of money. No, I'm saying it would have to be higher than that. But if you want one general rate, I mean, the 5 cent, going to 10 cent for the residents is not going to make the extra $18,000-$20,000. So it would have to be higher than 5 cents. But if you guys just want the 5 cents in steps and then the following year recoup the difference, I'm okay with that. But this is just just recommend this to council.
Yeah, and I'm good with the 5 cents. And I mean, my thoughts in the past, but it's only my personal thoughts, were, increasing it maybe incrementally, maybe not even the whole rest of the way the following year, maybe incrementally over a few years, depending on what we need to do, just to give some relief there. But I think that, at the end of the day, this for staff at least is allowing them to implement it. And then come budget discussions, all those rates are decided then, are finalized then anyway. So, I mean, that's a discussion we can have at budget time if there's appetite to change it and how much.
Madam Chair, if I may, and that's why it's here tonight, so that we have the January and February to get into that communication stage with the folks, get the mail out to the residents, and businesses that will be affected, and then rate the response to that and see if we have to plan any further public engagement as well. And then we can have all this done, satisfies all the elements of introducing a new rate as per the MGA, and then we're ready for budget in March and April. Okay.
And the tax bill going out.
Yes, which we need to have in March so that you have it ready.
Yeah, so yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Sampson said, I'm okay with the 5 cents for residential, commercial. It has to be the same rate, in my opinion. You can't be charging 2 different rates, right? So I'm okay with that. And incremental wise, yeah, that's something we can have discussion wise in the future, right? So.
Okay, so, and I guess the only comment I would make is just related to the information. I don't feel is complete coming to us. I do worry about sticker shock for businesses, especially in the park, even for residential, homes. I like without having a sense of what the financial implication is going to be on some of the largest employers in Richmond County and the Strait area. I'm not super comfortable with passing anything. That being said, if there's no other comments, we can go to a vote on it. Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Nay.
So after years of debate, why is council now looking at implementing a fire levy on property owners in Point Tupper?
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, costs are continuing to rise for the municipality. We do have a fire services agreement with the town of Port Hawkesbury to provide fire protection for Point Tupper, and really glad to have been able to stabilize that delivery. But it was the will of council this evening to to move ahead with looking at a bit of what I heard one councillor refer to as a baby step, to look at a very small fire protection rate for Point Tupper to help to offset some of those costs, because those costs are being borne from the general tax base right now. And so, yeah, it was the will of council, and so that's the direction that we've asked staff to move in. And that is looking at, I think April 1st, we talked about that. I think it'll be important to get out to folks, though, with communications, and our staff has committed to doing that. They'll be in touch with everyone in Point Tupper to talk about what that situation is and what to expect on their future tax bills.
Now, you said there's some missing pieces of information. You voted against the motion to recommend it to regular council. If you do get that information, would you consider still supporting it, or is it more than that?
Well, I think, council has supported the motion to move forward regardless, and we need to respect that decision and do whatever we can now to support that decision moving forward. And certainly if there's anything I can do to help with the communications piece or any support that staff needs, I think we all need to be there, because it is the will of council to move forward with that. The information that I felt was missing, though, were those direct impacts. So we don't have a sense right now of what the impact is going to be to some of the largest employers in the municipality. Certainly, hopeful that we'll still get to see that information in the future. And I know that that staff would be able to provide that should we need it. So,
a memo from Warden Lois Landry asked council's approval to have staff explore the costs associated with hosting the firearm safety course in Richmond County ahead of next year's fall deer hunt.
So the warden has put together a memo for Richmond County Council regarding firearm training in Richmond County. I think it's specifically called FSC, right? I can't even remember. Firearm Safety Course, I think, is what it is describing. So she's suggesting, based on information that she has collected regarding the fall deer hunt, that individuals must complete both a hunter education course and a non-restricted firearm safety course. The hunter education course is online, so you can take it from anywhere, but the FSC is not. It runs 11 hours and is typically offered across 2 late evening sessions or a Saturday plus 1 evening, and the nearest regular location is East Bay, which makes it a little difficult for people to get to. So she is suggesting, I guess, in her absence, I can suggest that a motion be considered for committee to recommend to council that staff explore costs associated with hosting a firearm safety course locally for council's consideration during budget deliberations for next year. So I'm not sure if folks feel they need more information or discussion from the warden on that, but I'll open it.
There are no costs there for it, so I guess that's part of what her motion will be. But I would maybe go a step further and just have it for, if we're paying for it, which is probably something that's not common for municipalities, that we would only have it open to Richmond County residents. So I'm prepared to move that, her suggested motion. And I guess during budget deliberations, we can put the restrictions on it then. So I'll move that committee of the whole recommend to council that staff explore the costs associated with hosting the firearms safety course locally for council's consideration during budget deliberations.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
So I'd like to make an amendment if there's appetite for it. I think I'd be more comfortable. I'd prefer to amend that Richmond County residents be given preference, if there's any way we can do that. Just in the sense of if people from outside are applying and it makes for a full class, I don't think it makes any sense to deny them coming if there's spaces available.
I guess the motion I read, I didn't speak of Richmond County residents. I just said it, that we would talk about it at the budget. But if you do want to amend and put that in there.
No, and it's fine if that's not,
Yeah.
if that's not the motion, then I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, I read what was there.
So the motion is that we are recommending to council that staff explore costs associated with hosting the firearms safety course locally for council's consideration during budget deliberations, at which time we can talk about any kind of restrictions. Yeah. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried.
Do you think better access to firearms and hunter safety courses will help with the controlling the deer population that's seems to be really increasing?
It may, and I think, the provincial government made some changes that was in that briefing note as well, as far as Sundays and the ages and so on. And I think it's something worth exploring. I think, if staff looks into it, see if this is a viable solution, because at the moment, from what we were told, the nearest place for someone to have that, take that course was East Bay. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm only speaking of my own thoughts on this. It was brought forward by the warden, but it's access to it, right? And we want people in Richmond County to have access to this, and we just wanted to help them out with that access. And it may in turn have a positive effect on the deer population, because that's been an issue for a bit of time now.
Council reviewed a letter from a Richmond County resident requesting that the municipality transition from using social media platform Facebook for municipal outreach. The letter cited a recent investigative report by Reuters revealing that the owner of Facebook, Meta, is knowingly profiting from a flood of fraudulent ads, many of which target vulnerable populations, including seniors. The correspondent said this is especially troubling, given the rise in financial fraud affecting many older Canadians through deceptive online ads and impersonation schemes. Every post from the municipality on Facebook is leading residents to a site that's actively hurting them, the letter said. The letter requested a transition to Canadian-owned platforms that prioritize community well-being and data privacy.
And a letter from Dorothy Boer, Richmond County resident, regarding a request to transition away from Facebook for municipal outreach. And I think, yeah.
Only if you.
And we can, if we would like to take some action around it, we can certainly change the category that it's in.
Some of the things she speaks of.
We just heard, yes. Yes.
It made me think that maybe this should have been an action item when I first read it. Reading Josie's presentation. What does staff think about that? Do you think we should do anything, or because they are speaking against Facebook? I kind of get the impression.
They are, but tell me another viable option to get in just about 90% of the homes in the county at this point in time. Right? Until that comes around.
There's the one to ask.
Right. Until there's another viable option.
Yeah.
This is the best tool, with training, with precaution, to use to reach our residents in a timely manner.
I will note, though, that, again, I really appreciated Josie flagging the Voyant Alert. Would like to see that become our primary way of communicating with residents. It's direct to the person, and they can subscribe to the content that they are interested in, and, you know, and then they know it's coming from an official source. It's a direct primary source of information. In the meantime, I think we have to pursue, you know, when we talk about communicating with the public, we've had even conversations about the amount of times we issue hard copies, do mail drops to let people know about engagement or other types of activities. So I think we have to approach it from many different ways to try to make sure that we're not missing people who are either only on Facebook or not online at all, or whatever it is, right? That multifaceted approach.
I was just thinking of the Voyant Alert. Can you pick like things like today? People were calling me about the water break, and I'm not on the computer, so I just text our director, and he let me know exactly where it was at. Can you get that with the Voyant Alert as well? Just those kind of things? Okay.
Just the people in that community.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I should tell some people to sign up for this then. Okay. Thank you.
You know, I'm not tech savvy either, but I signed up for it, and like I wouldn't necessarily get a Lewisdale water notice because of where you just list your address within the county, but I'll get other notices, things going on that could affect you. So I think it's a great tool. Yeah.
Dorothy mentions in her letter, she asks, you know, she says, I respectfully ask how I can help. And I guess to Dorothy, what I would suggest is to really encourage people to sign up with the Voyant Alert system, and then they know they're getting information direct from the municipality to them, right? And we're not relying on the wonders of algorithms and social media. But it's a great question, and appreciate her letter on this, and very timely, to your point.
Now, do you think it's a good idea for the municipality to transition from Facebook for outreach?
Well, transitioning away from Facebook for outreach is a really challenging proposition, because the reality is that that's where many of our constituents are accessing their information. You saw some statistics from the presentation earlier in the evening, you know, something like, 45% of people are getting their news sources from that type of platform right now. So, our strategy with the communications plan that we adopted a number of years back was to reduce reliance, I think, on certain types of communications, and certainly social media was one of those. So when you look at our communications plan now, it includes Voyant Alert, it includes mail outs for certain circumstances, so mail drops to every constituent, it includes social media, it includes newspaper, radio, so those types of mix of traditional and digital media to try to make sure that we're reaching everyone. I don't think we have the option, quite frankly, to just cut off communications on a certain platform on principle, because the reality is that residents are relying on us to be able to get information to them where they are. And so we have to rely on having that mix. And the idea is to reduce reliance, but not necessarily to eliminate.
Finally, Council reviewed a staff report on the Richmond Arena.
So unfinished business is the Richmond Arena staff report. A briefing note's been provided to Municipal Council regarding some of the updates that are being presented through the ops report, as well as the evacuation plan for snow loads, and it speaks to those motions which we've made in the past. I'm going to open this up for conversation from councillors to see what your take is on the suggestions and the recommendations being made here.
I think we ought to keep moving with some of these things, especially the floor if possible, and look at them, through budget time and so on, because if we do go down the road to a new facility at some point, I think we know that's still, quite a long ways off, and based on that building report that came back that, things were relatively good there, especially for the age of the building. We may still have to stomach putting some major money into it for some of these things, but I think after that report, we know the building's very much a viable option. So, my thoughts would be, given that if we are replacing it, it's probably several years down the road, we are going to have to probably spend a little bit more money in the next few years than we may be initially comfortable with. But I think we have to keep moving forward on that.
So what aspects of the staff report show that the current arena is a viable option? kind of stands out to you about that?
You know, some of that was referencing back to the building condition assessment that had been done, and, you know, that was exactly as Councillor Marchand said, you know, there was terminology in there that it was in excellent condition for the age of it. And I think a lot of that has to come back to the staff that's worked there over the last number of years. I mean, if not for them taking pride in what they did there, the building would not necessarily be in that condition. We've seen other arenas of similar vintage that haven't held up near as well as this. So I think that says a lot about the caliber of people we had working there for years that looked after the building, you know, to the best of their ability. Now, one of the things, you know, we had to look at was snow load, and there's been snow load monitoring put in place. This will be the first winter to test that out and see how that works. You know, the one of the aspects in the report was that the building didn't meet, I believe it was 2015 national building codes. Well, you know, most things built prior to that are not going to meet those building codes. It doesn't mean that we necessarily tear it down, but it may mean that we have to make adjustments, right? So I think we may not like some of the numbers, you know, as things go forward. It's going to be an expensive endeavor, but we don't want to go without an arena. And we also see that this building is in good enough condition that I you know, my personal opinion, I think it's worth investing in.
I'm in total agreement with Councillor Brent Sampson on this situation. The messages I hear are the same messages every time when it comes to the arena. It's the same. You know, they tell me, you know, that you know, they talk of delayed openings every year. You know, it's a delayed opening because of the floor refrigeration, but they also talk that when people come from away and people that play in the Richmond Arena say that it's some of the best ice service in the province, right? So whatever we're doing there is working, and the Richmond Arena is known for their ice service. So to reiterate what Councillor Brent Sampson is saying, I think that a new facility is many years away, and you know, I hear residents say many times, we don't want to lose our arena, and we don't want to be without an arena during this transition of an old building to a brand new facility. So yeah, I would be in agreement that we keep investing into our building. It's you know, some of the structural you know, results and the you know, the consulting and all that stuff that's been done seems to indicate that the building's in half decent shape. So I would continue to invest in it as well, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I want to kind of a repeating of what Councillor Brent said, the Phase 2 structural review. It says the review noted the overall condition of the structure is excellent considering the age. So I'm okay moving the recommendations of our Public Works Director that are on page 4, I guess, of continuing to spend some of the money and prepare. I get the impression that some prep and pre-ordering has to be done to do it in the next off season. So I'm prepared to move a motion that the director gets on to getting the equipment.
Sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt it, but I did, just for clarity, there is discussion in that last recommendation about floor replacement could potentially proceed at an estimated cost of $1.5 million in next year's budget if a decision to proceed is made prior to the end of the year. Do you mean to the end of the fiscal year or the end of the calendar year? Like, are we talking this month we have to make a decision? I can see Chris nodding there. Okay, so you need a December decision in order on the $1.5 million to do the floor replacement. In the summer of 26.
Best case scenario.
Yeah.
If we can get people.
He needs to get moving, yeah.
And that,
In order the equipment is.
okay. And that 1.5 million, though, would that be one of the figures that gets updated if we recommend the expenditure of 15,000 plus HSD to update the drawings? It'll be revised.
It'll give us the tender-ready documents to put up for the floor and refrigerator.
So does it make sense for us to do an authorization now on something that we know the cost is going to change on based on the $15,000 in updated design?
I guess what I'm saying is he needs to get going on this.
Yes, I agree.
Is the thing. So
just
if he
wondering
needs the
what those
15 for the updated drawings to go with the tender, and then from that, he'll know what needs to be ordered. He needs to get rolling on it, or we're not getting this done in the summer of '26. So that's why, I mean, there's an urgency. We spoke about this at the March review that the Public Works Director had given us as well. So here we are in December. You know, I think he stated November was his time, December, so we're here. We need to make a decision and go with this, or we're going to be the summer of '27, and costs aren't going down. So that's why I'm prepared to move the 4 of them that he has, but I guess the drawings are number 1.
Right, that's my question, Councillor, is what has to happen first here to get us going quickly?
He needs
Right.
the drawings, but
Yeah,
once they're ready, his decision to move forward with tendering. Yeah.
Madam Chair, with the extra work from the 15,000 as well, will give us a better scope of what needs to be done, what needs to happen, and help us source if there are any grants available to help with that. All right, so we do need that. That's one of those pieces. A lot of these are going to happen at the same time,
right.
but we got to start with that 15,000 now.
And I guess I just don't want to delay him with us having to go another meeting. We missed January, it's February. It's getting too late, so make them now. Staff will decide how they're going to best approach it, because we know it needs to be done, as Councillor Sampson says.
No, I would agree with that. I would like to have seen the request for the 15,000 to get the updated drawings, though. I mean, like you said, Councillor Marchand, we talked about that in March. It would have been nice to see the result of that updated information in time for us to do this, but it looks like we're in a position to have to do both at the same time. And if it doesn't, you know, like as you said, it's not going to cost less. It's probably going to cost more, any delay we make. So are you prepared to make a motion to,
All the recommendations?
you're moving to proceed? Okay. So the motion is to proceed with all 4 recommendations outlined by staff in the briefing note, which includes the 15,000 in spending for updated drawings, and to carry out the maintenance activities deemed appropriate to reduce the risk of failures, and to do a building condition audit, and lastly, to proceed with the floor replacement in the 2026-2027 budget. Captured? Okay, so could I have a seconder on that?
I'm willing to second that.
No further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
When do you think the municipality is going to have to start taking steps towards looking at a new facility to replace Richmond Arena? Is there like a specific time frame during which that's going to have to happen?
Yeah, so I think some of the decisions that were made here tonight will help move us in that direction. We have already taken initial steps with the multi-use center, you know, the proposal that was being studied the last number of years. There's no question there's a large price tag on those types of things. So right now what council is looking to do is to make sure that we're maximizing the effectiveness of the infrastructure that we do have in the Richmond Arena, which is a facility that much loved, by both staff and council and the community. So, that's the direction we're taking at this point, but there is no hard and fast deadline. I do think the building condition audit, which is a kind of a deeper dive into the state of the facility, will be helpful in determining, lifespan. But at the end of the day, we do need to make sure that facility is running effectively and efficiently so that residents can use it. And I think Councillor Sampson mentioned it, the delayed starts the last number of years. We need to put some investment back into the building to make sure that it's available in a timely manner for residents.
Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.